The push for transgender in our culture, it's affecting our younger generation a lot more than it's affecting the older generation.
If I could change what a child thinks, eventually that child will grow up and think that's normal. That's the new norm. And that's why it's much more prevalent in children than it is in adults. We're letting a 3-year-old child decide whether or not you're going to be a boy or girl. This is the same 3-year-old child that we won't let pick their clothes. We don't let them choose what food to eat. We don't let them choose whether or not they're going to go to school. But we're going to let them pick their gender for the rest of their life.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Well, hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. My name is Jared, one of the co-hosts here, and we have a new episode releasing every single Wednesday, and we get to talk about all kinds of different topics on the show. And today in particular, we have a really cool guest, an exciting guest that is going to talk to us about a little bit of a heavy topic, a controversial topic. We're looking at biblical sexuality. We're looking at the push for transgender in our culture and all of these things that are going on. And we want to address those things from a healthy standpoint, from a biblical standpoint, and from a loving standpoint. And so Pastor Daryl Black is going to be on the show with us today. Thank you so much for being on the show with us, Pastor Daryl. He did a message about 7 months ago at Grace Family, and as soon as I heard it, I thought, man, he did such a good job of articulating God's truth and also saying, what does it look like for us to approach this in the context of love? And I recognize that not everybody is going to view that as love. Perspective is reality. However, he just did such a good job. Pastor Daryl, thank you so much for being bold, for tackling hard topics, for being willing to step into that space and share what God says to be actually true. So thank you so much for being here, for all that you're doing.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here, man. Thank you for having me on. And, we're going to touch on this. I don't really consider anything to be controversial. I think stuff is controversial when we don't talk about it for real.
Yeah.
And then that makes it a controversy. But when we're just, hey, we're going to be open, honest, transparent, and we're just going to lay it all out on the table. Yeah. And then you let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. But so that's the challenge. What can Chris and I come up with today that's controversial? I'm just kidding.
Go for it.
I'm just teasing.
Let's do it.
Well, I know how long you've been at Grace. What, 2 years?
Yeah, coming up on 2 years this month. And May.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We just started. I mean, we moved down here from Colorado just over 2 years ago, and I think you were just coming on right as we started attending Grace. Yeah. And the first thing that everybody probably recognizes you or introduces you as is that you had your appearance on the X Factor.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
That's over 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
So like 11, maybe 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was a blast, man. It was fun and scary at the same time.
Sure.
It is, it's nothing that I ever want to do it again.
Yeah.
But it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
And we had, Simon Cowell, L.A. Reid, Demi Lovato, Britney Spears. Yeah. They were the judges on the show. And really, it's my family that got me into doing it, my wife and kids, because for everybody that doesn't know, I'm married. I got 5 children. Me and my wife, we've been together for almost 30 years. And so we fell in love and kept going.
Yeah.
But my wife and my children have always thought, hey, Dad, you should get on one of those talent shows. You can get on the America's Got Talent or The Voice or American Idol. And I don't like talent shows. Mm-hmm. I've done music, and I've traveled the world. I've done music. I've been on plays. I've done some TV shows, light work kind of stuff, commercials. But I just don't like being judged. I know that sounds weird, but I never wanted to do a talent show. I just didn't like the idea of it. But my wife convinced me to do it. And, the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was an awesome time.
How old were your kids when you were on the show?
Let me see. My oldest son right now is 29.
Okay.
So he was 18 at the time, 17,
okay.
17, 18 at the time.
Yeah.
So
all five?
All five. Yep.
Yeah,
so right now they're 29, 26, 22, 21, and 17.
Were you separated during the competition, or would you go film a little bit and then go home?
Yeah. So it was back and forth. I was only separated for a matter of, there were about 2 weeks in the competition that I was in Miami. And then for another 2 weeks, I was in LA. And then I think for another 4 or 5 days, I was in Chicago or something like that.
Okay.
And so, we did it. There were a couple little spots that we went to. Or San Francisco. And we were in San Francisco for 4 days.
Where are you from?
Originally from St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay. Is that where you guys were living at the time?
No, I was living in California at the time.
Okay.
So was in California, loved California. We living in Northern California area, Sacramento, and loved it. Living in California. California is a cool place to be. It's a great country all by itself. And it's got its hangups too. But
Sure.
But that's where we were living at the time. Really enjoyed it. And my original tryout was in San Francisco at the Cow Palace. And bro, it was pandemonium. If you've never, you see it on TV where it's thousands of people camping outside and doing all that. I'm not that guy. I'm not camping. I'm not bringing a tent. I just showed up one morning. Actually, I auditioned online. This is where the story is kind of crazy. I don't like standing in a line. So they had an audition where you can audition online. So I auditioned online and they were like, great, come and audition for the judges. So when I go to the Cow Palace, I think I'm going to go audition for the judges. And I get down there and there's 7,000 people standing in line. And when I get there, I have my little golden ticket. And I'm thinking I'm going to go to the front of the line because clearly I've got the golden ticket. And I get to the front of the line, the security guard goes, yeah, everybody up here has a golden ticket. So you got to go stand in line. And people had been camping out for a couple of days. And I'm thinking, here, now I have to go all the way to the back of this line. It's freezing outside. I wasn't prepared to stand outside. People when I say they are camping out, they got blankets, they got coffee mugs, they got heaters, they got food, and I've got nothing. I've got a Nutri-Grain bar in my pocket and a cup of orange juice. That's all I brought. Fortunately, as I'm about to go to the back of the line, completely discouraged, I'm calling my wife. I said, babe, I'm coming home. I'm not doing this. And she's like, no, stay, please stay. And as I'm hanging up the phone, the security guy goes, hey man, just stay right here. Just stand here. And some people who were very gracious to me, they actually gave me a blanket and went and got me some hot chocolate. So I was cool for the next couple hours.
Yeah.
So we hung out, and that's where it began. And
how do they push through that many people?
Bro, it's a singing mill. It's when you go inside the stadium. So imagine a football field, and you go into football, and on the football field, there's cubicles set up all over the field. So there's there's 100 cubicles on the floor, and each one of those cubicles, there's a producer of some sort. And they're calling people down to go into these cubicles. So at any given time, you hear 100 people singing all at the same time. So it's very distracting, it's kind of chaotic because they're just bringing people down. They're just trying to get through everybody. And after a while, you start to notice that some of these cubicles are the no cubicle. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you go in that cubicle, it's going to be a no. And so the row of people that I was on, as they're calling people down by row, the row I'm on, there's probably, 32 people or something on my row. And I'm at the end of the row. And almost everybody on my row was phenomenal. So, and they all end up going home. So I was sure my cubicle is a no cubicle. So I was, I had no anxiety. There was no pressure. I didn't care. We're all going home anyway. It doesn't matter how good you are. And the people that you saw that were going to the next round was like a dude on stilts with a wedding dress on.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, because people listening might be like, American Idol, this America's Got Talent, X Factors, a lot of these shows, is it all singing or no? This is kind of like any act, right?
Yeah. Well, the show that I was on was all singing.
All singing. Okay. But there were still people dressing up weird and coming with their own characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chicken suits. I mean, any gimmick you can think of.
To try and stand
there was
out.
a whole, people named Pokemon costumes. Anything they could do to stand out, people were doing it.
Okay.
And so I just, figure, hey, my row is the no row. So it's cool. I met some great people. This was fun. I could tell my wife I did it and go home.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, interestingly enough, before I go in the booth, the guy who goes in before me actually sings the song I'm going to sing.
Oh,
no.
Come on.
Now, he doesn't know that,
Sure.
but he sings the song I'm going to sing, and he does a great job. I'm like, man, it was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sings another song. Then they hadn't had anybody sing two songs. So he sings another song, which was another song I was going to sing.
Mm.
And he's doing a great job. So I'm hearing him and I'm going, clearly he's moving to the next round, because he's 2 songs in. He sounds great. And he comes out of the booth and he's like, yeah, I'm going home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah. So when I went in, I was just like, hey, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, they asked me a few questions about my life, and, I tell them my wife and kids and all that. And they go, what song are you going to sing? I said, I don't know. I don't know what song I'm going to sing.
Mm-hmm.
This guy just sang both of the songs that I was thinking about singing.
Oh, my God.
And so I closed my eyes for a moment, and I did this weird kind of version of Bruno Mars' Marry You, where I was being real percussive on my body, and then I was singing it. It was kind of cool, but I wasn't expecting anything out of it. I thought they would just be like, all right, thanks a lot. It's a no. So when I get finished singing, and I had my eyes closed the whole time because I didn't even want to look at them.
Yeah.
So I'm singing and got my eyes closed, and when I get done, I say, hey, guys, thank you so much for the opportunity. Y'all have a great day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 3 girls sitting at the table, and one girl goes, well, is that all you're going to say? Mm-hmm. Well, sure. I'm not sure what else I'm supposed to say, but God bless you.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say right now. And she goes, oh, you didn't hear us? I said, no, I wasn't. Honestly, I wasn't really paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, oh, we said you're going to the next round.
Oh.
I said, oh, I didn't. She said, yeah, we said it while you were singing. I said, oh, I wasn't even paying attention. I just wanted to finish singing the song and then leave so I could say I did it. And she was like, yeah, you're going to the next round. I was like, oh, okay, great. I didn't even know what that meant at that time, because the next round wasn't the judges. There's like 6 rounds before you get to what you guys saw on TV.
Oh, my gosh.
So the next round is you perform in front of another group of people, and then you perform and you kind of keep going, and they're weeding it down. So I got there that day, 6 a.m. in the morning. I didn't leave until 2 a.m. the next day.
Wow.
Because you're going from round to the next, and then they're just kind of dwindling down. So you go from 7,000 people, and then the last of us is maybe 100 people left.
Holy cow.
And then out of that 100 people, you go and do a final audition in front of all these cameras, and they ask you tons of questions. And then when that night is over, they just kind of go, hey, if you're going to go to the next round, we'll call you. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
You just spend an entire day, almost 24 hours somewhere, and then they just kind of go, bye. So you still don't know what's going to happen. And they say, hey, if you go to the next round, you'll get an email in like 2 weeks. Man, I forgot all about it. After I left, I was just like, nobody does this stuff. Like, no one, there's too many good people and so on. So, and about 2 weeks later, they send me an email. and say, hey, we picked you to be one of the people to go in front of the judges. So I was like, oh, really? And not even thinking when they said the judges, it was the actual judges, because before they said I was going to be in front of the judges. So it's like, I don't know how many rounds I have to do. And then the next round was actually in front of the judges. And so my family got to be there for that. It was short notice. I didn't know when I was performing until the day I was performing.
Oh my gosh.
And so at the time I lived from the stadium, I probably lived almost an hour from where the stadium was. And so it took me, I didn't know until that morning. And that morning, one of the producers called me and said, hey, where are you? And I said, hey, I'm at home. And he said, well, you're supposed to be at the stadium right now. I said, well, I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. He's like, well, I need you to come right now. And so I booked out of the house and was driving 90 down the freeway to get to this stadium. So it's quite an event, man.
Yeah.
It was quite an event. And my wife got to come, and two of my boys got to come at the time, and it was crazy. It was, it's not nice.
It's like if you're able to get through that kind of process, you gotta have tough skin, thick skin. You got to be able to, actually have a little bit of toughness, mental toughness, and just to endure that kind of process.
Absolutely. So, once I got through the judges and I did the audition with the judges, after that, you do a 1-hour psychological profile test.
My goodness.
And then you do another test, which is like 500 questions that you have to answer. And then you meet, bro, I'm telling you, this stuff was serious. Then I met with a former FBI agent and a psychiatrist. And you meet with them for like an hour. So it's like, you gotta have some thick skin and know who you are. And they also want to know how to break you. Bro, it doesn't matter what the show is. Even if it's a reality, even if it's a singing show, everything is planned. Like, they know what they're doing. I don't know what's going on.
Right.
But they know what questions they're going to ask. They know how they're going to break you. They know what they're going to say. They're going to make the rooms inconvenient for you. When you're in a room with a bunch of people, it's going to be cold. They're going to make sure it's freezing in there so you don't get comfortable. Like, everything you can think of, it's like Chinese torture. So it's it's like they're going to put you in the most uncomfortable situation, and then let's see how you perform out of that.
Are you truly talented?
Bro, and that's the whole experience. So anybody that comes out of that winning, even if they're not a good performer or singer, you got through all the other stuff, you're a winner.
Wow.
Because I've been through it. I see what they do. It's brutal.
Wow. That's impressive.
Do you still do much with your music at all?
I do. I still sing. I just actually recently put some music out. I did a cover of Gratitude and Champion, which was kind of like the choice of the people. I put a post on my Instagram of me singing Gratitude and Champion about a month or so, about a couple months now, and they shot up to like 5 million views.
Oh, wow.
And so people were going, hey, I want to hear your version of that. So just about a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago, I downloaded and on all the musical apparatuses and that you can find, and I put that song on there, and people are loving it. And we're working on new music now that's going to be coming out soon here in end of summer and fall.
And
is it you solo, or are you working with? What were you saying, Chris?
I know. I was just going to say, and it helps with a church like Grace Family that has Grace Family Church has such a great worship team and is so music centric, or they're just such a great job there with everything, with their overall sound, music selection. It's just such a professional group. It's amazing. Looks and sounds great.
Man, we got some incredible people, and on the project that I did, the song I just did, a couple of the guys are helping me. They played on it. So Trevor, Taylor, Billy, those guys played on that, and on some of the new material that's coming out, the original material that's coming out. Those guys are playing on too.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
That's what I was asking. Yeah. Taylor was stolen from us from Clearwater. So
Taylor's a beast, man.
Campus jumper.
Yeah. Every time I see him, I say, the abandoner. There he is. No, he's awesome. Both him and his wife are just incredible.
Yeah.
So, such a really all. Like Chris said, I mean, we do a professional job, but just the heart of everybody that. At least everybody that I know, everyone's heart is just, it's thumping together, that they just want to push Jesus. They're like, hey, we just had the big thing at Raymond James, and we're sitting, the choir's in the back room, and they're doing the devotional. And again, they're, I think it was Casey was just talking about, like, guys, look, if our heart's not right, like, none of this matters, and it'd be, and that, right? We know that in our minds, but for him, and for the intentionality to be there, to say, hey, we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we're keeping our hearts right, because it would be really easy. There's a lot of temptation here for our hearts to go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We've got such incredible people, and we like each other.
Yeah.
Like, that's the we're not just talented and skilled, but we actually like each other, and we like what we're doing. We enjoy doing this. And you can see it across all our stages on all 8 of our campuses. You can see there are people up on stage doing worship that like each other and enjoy leading people in worship and love Jesus, most importantly.
Yeah.
Love Jesus, and we're good at what we do. And so I'm honored, man, to be able to rock with these guys every weekend. And honored for them to be a part of this project too.
Can you tell me where were you before Grace, and what brought you to Grace?
I was at originally when we moved to California. I was in St. Louis, New York, New Jersey, then California. So when we moved to California, it was to help plant a church there, and that went wonderful. And then another friend of ours was planting a church, and so then we helped him plant a church there. And then after we got that one going, then God called us to another church and to help them kind of thrive. And so we were at the last church we were at was about 5 years, almost 5 years. And we knew towards the end of that 5 years, God was calling us to something else, but we just didn't know what that was. And a friend of mine worked at Grace, and he says, hey, would you love to come and speak one weekend? Sure. Love to. I'm fortunate I get the opportunity to travel around the country and speak and sing. And so I was like, great. So my wife and I, we came to Grace, loved it, had a great time. And that was pretty much it. We just thought, man, Grace will be another wonderful ministry partner to have. And about 3 months later, maybe 2.5, 3 months later, Craig calls me up one day and says, hey, what you doing?
Yeah.
You want to come work with me? And I actually said no. Because while I knew that God was doing something new in our lives, I didn't know what that was, and I didn't want to leave California. Didn't want to leave. Our kids had grown up there most of their lives, and so it was a huge part of our infrastructure. And everybody's in school, they're in college, and we're very tight-knit, very close family. So it's like, nah, we like California. Can we just do a Grace in California? And you can just do another campus. But he invited us to come out, and my wife and I came out again, enjoyed the church, really loved it, but really wasn't sure what God was doing. Knew that our relationship was supposed to be more significant than me just popping in and out a couple times a year, but just didn't know what that meant. And then one day, it was like God was saying, hey, this is what you're supposed to be doing. And we prayed and we fought, and we prayed and we fought, and we battled and we wrestled. But we both were at peace with going, hey, I think we're moving to Tampa.
Yeah.
We're moving to Florida. Of all the places, I've never thought about moving to Tampa. It's never been on the radar to move to Florida. My wife didn't want to move to Florida. It was just not a thing we wanted to do. And so, and when God is saying, go, I've always been the guy that said, wherever God wants me to go, that's where I go. If it's Siberia, we're going to Siberia. That's where I'm going to go. And so why it was a little bit of a struggle, only because I was like, man, I really planned on living in California for the rest of my life. And God said, nope, I'm moving you to the other coast. It's like, all right, God, I don't know what this means. It was really an Abraham moment. I don't really know these people. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not even really secure in what the position is going to be. But man, I trust, for some reason, not only do I trust God, but for some reason, I trust Craig. Like, I trusted him in a very unusual way very quickly. Like, I just knew, here's a dude that talks to God. Here's a dude that's in tune with the Holy Spirit, and I trust him. I don't know where he's going, but I want to follow this guy. And then we came, and it was like, all right, this is where we're supposed to be. And it's been one of the best things and one of the most challenging things we've ever done. Uprooting your whole family is not easy. And going across the country where you don't know anybody, I've got no family, no relatives, nothing like that here. So that was really, it's a real struggle. But for grace to come around us and embrace us the way they did. Dude, I got friends now in a way that I've not had friends in my 30 years in doing church, which is so cool. It's almost frustrating, because I was like, God, what were you waiting for? I've always wanted these kind of relationship, and always looked for them and pined for them, and just could never really make it click that way. And you can't force a good friendship. And it's like the friendships that I have here, just, man, they just happened, and they were right. And I'm like, wow, so this is where you wanted us to be. And so, man, I'm grateful. We're growing like never before. Our church is growing like never before. Our family is growing spiritually like never before. It is. I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah, that's good. I know that, after you've been speaking for about a year, you closed a message with a song, and then ever since then, music has just now intertwined within. When Pastor Daryl is speaking, it's we were actually joking, because we've been doing the transition, where we're singing a song and then it transitions to the broadcast, right? Yeah. And someone said something, and I said, well, who's speaking? And I think the question was, are they going to be singing it, out of the broadcast? And I said, well, who's speaking? And someone said, Pastor Daryl. I said, well, then he's probably going to be singing. But it makes for, it's awesome. So my question to you is, I always wanted to ask you, is that you pushing it, or is someone else saying, hey, that was cool, you should do that more? Or was it just kind of a collective that everyone decided, hey, this is a good thing?
It became me being comfortable.
Yeah.
When you the new guy on the block, you don't know what kind of elbow room you have. And so you're going, hey, these are my gifts, and I've used them in other places, but I don't know how that works here. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but I do want to use my gifts. But I think the more comfortable I got with this being a home, the more I was like, I'm going to do me.
Yeah.
I'm going to do me, and I'm going to bring all of me to the table. I'm the guy that says, whether I'm leading worship or I'm doing a message, I want to leave it all on the table. All on the table. When I first got here, they were saying, guys were saying, hey, man, you got to conserve your energy, because you got to do this 4 services. You got to do this all weekend. And I was like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't. No, because what if I only get to do 1 service? What if I may not make it to Sunday. So I'm going all out every service. And the person that comes in that sits down, I don't want to give them some. I want to give them everything I got every time. That's what I owe Jesus, to give everything I got every single time. And because I honor being on the stage, bro. Like it is, and I don't take it for granted.
Well, that's why Jesus invented naps.
Hello. Nap king right here, bro. Nap king. I've been taking naps since I was like 19 years old. One of my mentors was like, yo, you got to learn how to start taking naps. And it felt very elementary at first. But bro,
there's a hat I want to get that says Jesus took naps. Be like Jesus.
Bro, I would take a nap in a heartbeat. People think it's weird. Like, yo, in the car, my office.
It's a cultural thing. It's like, if I'm resting, I'm not being productive. And it's so counter to who Jesus is.
When I wake up from my nap, I'm on fire. I'm like, let's go. Let's do this thing. It's like, no, give me 15 minutes. Give me 20 minutes where I shut my eyes and think about nothing. Oh, I'm coming up on fire.
That's right.
So
we all need that pause and that reset.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. It's like turning the computer off. Let's just go to sleep.
Yeah.
For a minute.
So we'll shift gears a little here, and we're going to transition into that message that you spoke. 7 months ago, you're talking about biblical sexuality, and specifically the piece that I really wanted to hear, and what I wanted our listeners to be able to hear from you is your perspective on kind of the rise in the last 5 years of it's not. I don't know if it's the rise of, I don't know the right way to put it, but just the push for transgender in our culture. And I know that you mentioned, it affects 1%, but you specifically said it's affecting our younger generation a lot more than it's affecting the older generation, which is 100% true. Yeah. And maybe you could give us a biblical perspective on transgenderism, and give us a little bit of, as a follower of Jesus, what does that look like for me? I'm not speaking messages on a Sunday, or your normal person that is just going through life.
Yeah.
What does it look like for them? How do they handle that for them? How do they handle it for their family?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a hard topic. You're right. In the last 5 to 7 years, and it's something that's been creeping up for years. Sure. I mean, if we go back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, you can see it start to be introduced into culture in very small ways, on television, in movies, in commercials, in very small ways. Which
you were talking about reality TV and how they're very intentional with everything that they do.
Absolutely.
Like you see that in, certainly in Hollywood and in pop culture.
Absolutely. I mean, and the way that culture tries to present certain things, it tries to make you think that those things are normal. Like I'll use this as an example. I love interior design. Always have. I like fashion, interior design, those kind of things. I'm that guy. So I care about colors and fabrics and wood choices and all that. Well, when I was growing up and I was watching that on TV, all of the men who cared about fashion were effeminate. And that's all they pushed in the culture, that like, if this guy likes fashion, then it has to be gay. If this guy likes interior design, he has to be gay. Even the TV shows that they would do where it was like, I can't remember, like not HG, I don't think it was HGTV, but some of those home TV networks, it was always that guy was feminine. So then when I would tell people, when you're 8 years old and 10 years old and you're like, wait a minute, I like fashion and I like interior design, but everybody that I see on TV that likes what I like is different than me, then something must be wrong with me. So then I have to act like them, because they're promoting anybody who likes this must be like this. And there's always been this intent to steal identity. And we watched that happen over the years. And it's never been more prevalent than it is right now. That it is, if I can change what a child thinks, eventually that child will grow up and think that's normal. That's the new norm. And that's why it's much more prevalent in children than it is in adults. I mean, because when you look at the statistics, and I've got tons of them, I don't even want to go through all of them, but I got tons of statistics. The amount of adults that are transitioning are less than 1%. But the amount of children that want to transition, that we're saying that we're going to allow them to a transition, even though the whole population is about 1% of the transgender community, but the amount of children that are being allowed to transition is 65%.
Wow.
Goodness.
Like, those numbers are staggering. When you go, when a person is a full-grown adult, they go, nah, I'm not doing it. But if I can convince a child to do it, and to start as early as 3 years old, we're letting a 3-year-old child decide whether or not you're going to be a boy or girl. This is the same 3-year-old child that we won't let pick their clothes. We don't let them choose what food to eat. We don't let them choose whether or not they're going to go to school. But we're going to let them pick their gender for the rest of their life.
When I was 4 years old, 4 or 5, I was heavily into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I loved them.
Yeah.
And I remember going to my mom and asking if I could cut off these 2 fingers because the turtles only had 3 fingers.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yep.
And my mom is obviously no.
Right.
You need your whole hand. And I'm grateful that she had the wisdom. It didn't take a lot for her to have that wisdom to tell me no, right? And the other thing that I always think about too is you can't rent a car until you're 25 years old because your brain is not fully developed. And the car rental companies understand when we rent to people under 25, it's not that they're dumb people, it's that their brains aren't working right. Yeah. And they make bad decisions. So we can't rent a car, but I can surgically change my gender.
And
well, I was going to say, which all comes down to it's on the adults who are making these decisions and okaying and approving this, and are being misguided, and then you have vulnerable parents who are listening to authority figures and experts in their field and saying, okay, well, if they said it, it must be true, and it's filtering down obviously to the children, and that. Now the children are dictating, what's happening because their parents are being misguided and are vulnerable to really bad decision making. And
the powers that be are making it. Yeah, they're empowering the kids to make the decision even over the parents.
Yeah, right. And everybody's scared to be canceled or be offensive. It's like, no, I have no fear of being offensive, knowing that I'm making the right decision for my child. Everybody else outside of my house, you might not like that. And that's cool. But in my home, I know what's right. And so getting back to, what the Bible says about it, and I've always used Genesis as the premises. God has always known what he was doing. And he made us perfectly. So he made perfect man and a perfect woman. And he didn't make them going, maybe he's a man. Maybe it's a woman. No, I made a man. I made a woman. I want y'all to be fruitful and multiply, which means more than just having kids. But it is, God knew exactly what he was making. He knew exactly what he was designing. And we are perfect in his design. Now Satan comes along and says, yeah, but really, does God really know everything? Really have it all together? And so the moment that you allow doubt to take root, then it changes the identity of everything. Because then you go, well, is God really in charge? Because if I'm in charge, then I get to pick whatever I want to pick. But if God is in charge and I really believe that he's the creator, then I have to act like the creation. Then I have to go, well, then I've got to listen to what he says about me because he knows what's best for me. And I think we live in a culture and probably always have lived in a culture that says we want to recreate God. We want to be God. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I don't want anybody telling me how I should feel or what I should do. I want to pick for myself what I think is right because truth is relative, right? Truth is whatever I pick truth to be until it offends me.
Right.
That's really the culture that we're living in. Truth is whatever I want it to be unless your truth offends me.
Right. And by offense, it means that you told me I can't do something I want to do.
Exactly.
Or you're telling someone else they can't do something that they want to do.
Exactly. And so I think when we look at us for your everyday believer, we have to be comfortable and bold to stand on truth. And truth comes with trouble. Truth comes with somebody may not like you because you're sharing truth. Truth means you may not have as many friends. Truth might mean that you've got to say something to some people that you really love. Our responsibility is to share truth, but our responsibility is also to do it with grace. And I think we've had this whole thing. I was watching a thing the other day. This guy was talking about telling this boy who had transitioned to a girl, and they're in this debate, and he says, listen, I want to tell you that God loves you, but you are a man. You're not a woman. You're a man. And this other guy standing next to him, he said, well, that's offensive that you're telling him that. But what do you mean? I'm telling him the truth. Well, that's your truth. That's not his truth. No, there is a truth. It's not my truth. My truth is irrelevant. I don't have a truth. There is a truth. And I have to tell him what the truth is. If he wants to experience the best that life has to offer, he's got to follow the truth. And the guy was doing it with love. He was graceful. He was kind. He didn't raise his voice. He did all those things. And there are some people who are not going to like it. But there was one guy, he asked if anybody wanted to come and be prayed for. There was a guy who was dressed as a woman who came down to be prayed for in front of all these people. Now, if it was for nothing more than for that one person, that's why we have to have truth and integrity. That's why we have to be willing to stand on it, because I'm planting a seed in that one person. And who knows, that one guy that came down, who knows was planting seeds before. That was already talking to him, and he'd been hearing it over and over again. And I think that takes some strong Christians. I love to get into conversations with people and they say, well, that's not what Jesus would have done. I'm like, well, man, you don't know Jesus then. Because the Jesus that I know, not only was he full of grace, also full of truth. He told the woman who was caught in adultery, hey, don't do it anymore. He didn't say, no, you good. Keep living. God bless you.
Yeah. You do you.
Yeah. He's like, live your best life.
Yeah.
He's like, no, stop it. Yeah. Do that. The woman at the well, he said, yo, you've been with 5 guys and the one you with right now, it's not your dude. So Jesus was good.
And that's coming back to creation, right? Mm-hmm. The reality that God designed it. I mean, that's our podcast, is we were made strong by design, that God actually created it to work a certain way. And it's less, I'm becoming more and more convinced that it's not, like, a lot of people feel like it's God doing things to us. But I think it's really us doing it to ourselves. It's like we keep putting our hand on the burner and going, God, why? And he said, don't put your hand on the burner, but I want to. And we do it again, And he's like, stop doing that. Like, he's like, I love you. I'm not going to stop you. I've told you what not to do. And you're right. I like that in your message you said, I'm accountable to God. I'm not accountable to social media. I'm not accountable, and ultimately at the end of the day, I can't worry about what this or that person thinks about me. I have to worry about, am I being faithful to what God has taught me to be true?
Absolutely, man. I honor and being a parent, being a father, And I recognize this. No matter how good of a parent you are, your kid's going to say something bad about you at some point. But I want all of my children to go, man, he told us. He told us the right thing. He told us, whether they choose to do it or not, they can't walk away and say, he didn't tell us.
He had our best interests
exactly
at heart. He told us the truth. He was honest. Regardless if we liked it or received it well, that's another story.
Right.
But people are they're trying to confuse truth and try to intimate that for people to that they have their own version of the truth.
Yeah.
And that's not a healthy thing.
No.
Truth is truth regardless of what I feel about it, how I look at it.
Absolutely.
Dr. Frank Turek, who's a Christian apologist that I listen
love
to,
that dude. Love him.
Okay,
man.
you love Frank?
Yeah.
Frank's been on our show many times, and he's like a mentor for me. But he says something great all the time. He says, "Don't let what you don't know cause you to doubt what you do know." And I think a lot of people who know things to be true are letting doubt creep in for things that they just know to be true. That they've known. It's just you're born with truth in you.
Yeah, yeah. Like, you literally have to fight. Clouded. You gotta fight. You gotta fight the reason and the truth that lives in you to try to do something else. Like you have to be at war with yourself to try to create something else. That's the crazy thing about it. It's like, why do you want to? There's a passage I believe in Proverbs. It says, "Kick against the stone," where it was actually kicking against the thorns. And so it's like, why would you kick against the thorn if you know that hurts you? Why would you do that? And you know the right thing to do. So you have to fight truth, which is why there's so much struggle, which is why it is so many people trying to do something. I heard this. They were talking about transitioning. I watched something on transitioning the other day, and this guy goes, the fact that there are people who have detransitioned,
correct,
is enough proof that transitioning isn't the way to go. Because we encourage these people, we celebrate them. Yeah, you know exactly what you're doing. Yeah, that's it. That's the way to go. And the reality that there are people that going, no, I completely regret this decision. I wish someone would not have affirmed me, is proof that, hey, we need more people telling the truth, even when it hurts, even when it offends you. I've got to tell you the truth, and I'm going to do it in love.
Yeah. I've thought about, why is there such a push for such a small percentage of the population? Have you thought about that at all, Daryl?
Why is the push for you mean the 1%?
Yeah.
I think it's identity politics. It is, we're taking this small thing, and if we blow it up big enough, we can change policy. So we take this small group of people, we're trying to, let's just blow it up. Let's make it seem like it's going on everywhere. It's not going on everywhere. Everybody feels like that. No, they don't. Every child is going through this. No, they're not. But if we keep pushing it in social media, we keep pushing it on the news, then we can change policy and say, see, I told you guys, look at now we're putting money into psychiatry and research and all this kind of stuff that we don't need to, that we're smart enough to know, hey, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's not worked for thousands of years. We've never had these issues for thousands of years. And all of a sudden, we just discovered in the last 10 years we were wrong.
Right.
About our whole human existence. This is we learned new science. No, we didn't discover anything new. It is we've been walking down this path, and we've allowed this seed to continue to grow, and we're pushing ourselves further and further away from God. And I don't think this is new behavior. I think that this is going on in the Old Testament.
Yep.
Yes. There's always been people having an issue with transitioning and all this kind of stuff. Even here's a little history lesson. Amazon women. The Amazon women were women who wanted to be men. So A means no. Maison means woman. So not a woman. So they adopted this name of not a woman because they wanted to join the military. They wanted to be men. So some of them would cut their breasts off and cut their hair so that they could be men. So this isn't new. This is 2,000, 3,000 years ago. So this isn't new stuff. So it's always been around, is that Satan he doesn't want anything to look like God. If I can steal your identity from you, then you're willing to do anything. If I steal your identity, you'll be an alcoholic. If I steal your identity, you'll identify yourself with your circumstance. We've never had so many people be depressed in the history of the world. We never had so many people claim depression and have suicide. And in America, we had a season called the Great Depression. And we didn't have that many people committing self-harm, is depressed as we do now. And they had a better reason to be depressed than we have now, and we didn't have that. We went in the 1600s, that was the Black Plague. And people were dying without even knowing what was going on. And still, there weren't that many people that were causing self-harm. So the further you get away from God, the more harm it's going to do to you personally. Because the further you get away from God, the less you know who you are. And if I keep having people affirm that, oh, I'm my Enneagram, you know what I'm saying? I'm my Enneagram. I'm not a child of God. I'm not courageous and I'm bold. I'm a 3. I'm an 8. I'm that. Or I identify with my anxiety. My wife and I were laughing one time. We saw someone who identified as selective mutism. I'm gonna let that simmer. Think about it for a second.
Selective mutism.
Yeah. My wife and I were watching the show, and the parents were talking about their daughter, and they were saying, yeah, she really struggles, and she has selective mutism. And we were sitting there going, man, what is selective mutism? Selective. Oh, she's shy?
Yeah.
That's what, so she decides she doesn't want to talk sometimes. So they put a label on the fact that sometimes their daughter doesn't want to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
So now
it's selective.
So it's called selective mutism. And I'm like, wait a minute, girl can talk. Mm-hmm. But if she decides she's not going to talk, you've made it okay. And now it's a label. And so now they're going to give her drugs and say she has a disability because sometimes she doesn't feel like talking to people. Like, this is what we're doing. We're looking at these silly things, and then we're putting labels on it and going, oh, that's what's wrong with you. You have selective mutism, and you have this. Listen,
as Jared pointed out earlier about hitting or reaching full maturity, for men, for women, and that doesn't really happen until we're in that middle 20s, certainly, mentally. And I think back to my childhood. I mean, we're all living in a state of constant confusion and change through puberty, through our teenage years, to really come into who we are and really having understanding of our character and combined with our experiences and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a very confusing time, but the stats and the studies all indicate that by the time people are in that middle 20s, and they do have a better grasp of who they are, most of these feelings that they associated with gender identity or any of this other confusion, they're past all of that. Mm-hmm. They've overcome all of that. So can you imagine, just because you're 11 and you feel a certain way, give it a decade. Mm-hmm. There's a good chance you won't feel that way anymore. Yeah.
Listen, my son at 6 years old wanted to be a wolf.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I was like,
luckily, you didn't have a tail surgically attached to
it. Like, I had to tell him, you're not a wolf. It's like, I can't be a wolf. I said, you can pretend to be a wolf, but you're not a wolf. You are a boy. So that's what you are. And he wanted me to feed him out of a bowl. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Can I live in the backyard? No. Nope. You're a boy.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need strong parents. We need strong leaders that are willing to say, hey, I am not going to participate in your, not just delusion, but your immaturity.
Yeah.
I'm not going to participate.
I think our with technology and social media, it's raised our expectation and this desire and need to be seen. I mean, I think that we've always wanted to be seen anyway.
Yeah.
But now it's like we've reached new heights, these new levels of this unhealthy need to be seen, and you have to keep taking it a step further to make it more extreme in order to now I'm being seen beyond what now being gay is not enough to be seen. Or, and I know that statement will get misconstrued and blown up and all kinds of things. Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? We always have to keep, you talk about stepping away from God. It's like we have to take another extreme step away. And now, I've learned, Chris, more than the furry thing that's going on where kids identify as an animal.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And we're like, oh, that's cool. And there's a guy named JP Spears. I don't know if you know him. He's a comedian guy from California. And I just watched a video that he put out because he's like having this awakening to Jesus, which is,
it's been fun to watch, actually.
You only know it through video content, so who knows one way or the other.
Yeah.
But he talked about this, the whole transgender deal, and his perspective was, if I can convince people that God makes mistakes, then I can convince people that God is not a God worth following.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's no longer the argument of does God exist or does God not exist. It's God exists. He just messes up. And so don't worry about following him. Instead, follow yourself.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'd never thought about that before.
Yeah. And that's the prevalent ideal is that, because you'll run into a lot of people say, I believe in God, but he couldn't possibly get everything right. There's too many variables. So he messed up on me, and that's okay because I can fix his mess up. And then what doesn't help that, like you said, there's a community for everything. Because social media is so prevalent, you can find your community anywhere. You can find the people who don't have a nose, they want to cut a limb off. That's a whole community. There are people that feel like I shouldn't have a limb, and they want to, hey, I feel like I should only have one arm. That's a community. I couldn't believe that I was finding this stuff. It's going. Yes. There are people that think they should be disabled and aren't disabled, but they want to identify with the disabled community. So they found other people who go, hey, what should we do about that? And so the fact that you can find anybody for anything is not always good, because instead of those people getting together and saying, hey, let's support each other because we got a problem, like a AA group or something.
Right,
hey,
sure.
We all have a challenge. We all have something that we need to overcome. Instead of us saying that, they're going, hey, we're normal. It's normal for me to think that I shouldn't have my arms or legs. That's normal. And I need to be around other people who think that's normal. Yeah. And the reality that you can find that is almost horrible. And so I think...
and then you have the people on the outside of that group that are advocating for that group because of the human condition of wanting to fight for the little guy.
Yes. Yeah. And everybody's the little guy.
Yeah.
So we're fighting for so much. We're not fighting for anything. We're literally fighting for everything at the same time. And it's the craziest thing. I've seen people who are really liberal and really conservative. I've seen states that are really liberal and really conservative. And then you got people who are really liberal moving to states that are more conservative because they're going, hey, I'm liberal, but I'm not that liberal. But then they're going to the conservative place going, hey, you guys should be more liberal. Like, no, the reason you came to this place is because that place was doing too much. Because even you recognize, like, come on. Yeah. This is too far. Because we all know, we have to battle with our what's really right. And so we all know it's written in our DNA, but we want to be our own God. Or like you said, we at least want to make God, fallible.
Yeah. So I know what I would say to somebody if they're coming to me and saying, man, I'm wrestling with this. Maybe they do know God. Maybe they don't know Jesus. Obviously, that's where you start, right? You start by saying, hey, you got to know Jesus. You have to have that personal relationship with him, and you can.
Yeah.
God wants to know you. God loves you. He wants to have that relationship with you.
Yeah.
So that's like foundational. But then from there, so if you have a person, maybe they're young in their faith, but they say, man, I'm struggling to discern between what is the world's truth and what is God's truth.
Yeah.
What would you say to that person?
I would say, let's sit and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's sit and let's read and let's see what the truth says. I don't want to convince you of truth. I don't want to persuade you of truth. But let's read it together. I'll share this without names. I'll share this. We had a same-sex couple after I did the transgender message, and they were very nice. It was two different couples, two separate times. But one couple came in and said, hey, I want to meet with you and talk about this. And, I heard what you said, and they thought it was a great message. They said, I've never heard a message like this dealt with so much care. And there was things that I just didn't know. But she goes, but I'm still struggling because I love this woman. Mm-hmm. And we live together, and we love the Bible. We've been coming to this church on and off, I think at that time, for like 6 to 7 months. And we watch you guys online, all this kind of stuff. She goes, what do I do with that? And fortunately, she brought her Bible. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, let's do this together. Right now, in front of both of you, let's open up your Bible to Matthew 5. Let's open up your Bible to Matthew 19, and let's read it together. And when we read it together, I said, now, once we read it together, tell me how you reconcile with what you just read with how you're living. Because these are Jesus's words. So Jesus is the one talking about relationship. Jesus is the one talking about marriage. So if Jesus says that this is what marriage looks like to Jesus, tell me how you reconcile that your relationship doesn't look like that. And she goes, I never read that before. Mm-hmm. I never read that before. And no one in ministry, in church, has ever sat down with me to just let me talk.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts. Man, have a foundation of 5 or 6 scriptures that you can lean into that are not even relationship based. Doesn't even have to do, because I think sometimes as Christians, we want to throw stones. And we're like, let me take you to Romans 1, and let me tell you what it says in Leviticus. Yeah, and those are true. And that's right. Mm-hmm. But there's also John 3 and 16 and 17. Mm-hmm. And there's also John 1. There's also Matthew 5 and 19. There's also, there's all these scriptures just to say, hey, we don't have to talk about your stuff. Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about your relationship with God.
Yeah.
And then let's wrestle with those things together. Let's wrestle with when you say, this is what I think relationship should be. And, love is just love and it shouldn't matter. Okay. Well, then let's see what God says. And then let's read that. And then you tell me, because it seems to matter to him. But again, I'm not trying to convince you, but I will help you as much as I can interpret that passage.
Yeah. When I first started pastoring, I remember sitting there praying and saying, God, man, how am I supposed to help anybody? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
And it was out of that conversation where Jesus said, it's everything that you're saying. It's not your job to fix people.
Yeah.
It's not your job to convince them of stuff. It's your job just to usher them into my presence and then let me do my thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
That's it.
That's our job. That's our job. And so I think that so many times we think, we got to be battle ready or whatever.
Yeah.
But we forget that what the end goal is. The end goal is we want this person to know Jesus and we want their life to be transformed. We don't want to win an argument.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's what a lot of believers
Yes.
want to do. They want to win the argument. It's like, dude,
Yeah, I want to win.
I don't have time to argument. Eternity is too close.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to argue with, but I'm going to share with you the gospel of Jesus.
Yeah.
John 1:17. So for the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. My job is to give you grace and truth. And my job is to show you Jesus in a way that maybe you haven't seen him before. And as I told the couple that came to see me, hey, I apologize if we haven't handled this right as a community. Because we haven't always done a good job. And that's okay. I apologize for the churches that wouldn't talk to you. And maybe it's not that they didn't want to talk to you because they were being meanies, but maybe they just didn't know what to say. So that's why they didn't talk.
And the importance of grace and truth together, not by themselves.
Exactly.
As you pointed out, one without the other isn't very helpful.
Grace without truth is tolerance. And is passive. And truth without grace is aggressive. So you need them both always. And I think there's a value in just listening. Like if you sit and listen long enough, people will tell you their story. They will tell you how they got to where they got to. And then you'll find a door to go, yeah, but God loves you. Yeah, but that wasn't your fault. Yeah, but you didn't do that to you. Or, oh, yep, I hear you. And there's a better way. Let me show you. Or you might go, I've struggled with that. I totally understand what it's like to feel that, feeling like you don't belong. I know what it's like. I know what it's like to feel like I don't belong, to be confused about my identity. I thank God for parents and siblings and people in my life that were like, nah, we're not going to let you slip into a lost identity. This is who you are. Keep repeating it to yourself, even when you don't feel like it, even when it doesn't look like, when you look in the mirror, you don't see what you say. Do it anyway, because that's what God says about it.
Yeah. One of the best examples that I've seen in my own life was a friend that my mom actually had, that she was she was a lesbian for a while, and she got married, and her partner ended up passing, and my mom was friends with her through it all. And as she started going to church and saying, man, I want to follow Jesus, God started to reveal those things to her, just like we were talking about, and she started questioning it. But then what she struggled with is, but I still have these feelings, right? I still have these feelings, though. And what came out of that is, it's because you're still in your flesh, and it doesn't matter. Like, that's your struggle, but we're all struggling with something. I always said that, I always call it the big ugly. It's that ugly thing inside us that we don't want anyone to know is there, right? Because we're embarrassed or we're ashamed of that thing. And men struggle with certain, sexual sin. Women have other sexual sin. It's not like one is worse than the other. It's like we're all struggling. We're all wrestling with these things that we know aren't right. And that's the Jesus says crucify that flesh, on a daily. Yeah. It's not a once-off deal. It's like, hey, as long as you're in this body, you're going to struggle with stuff.
That's true.
And go ahead.
And I think I will add to that, because as you were saying that, and I've heard this question. Yeah, but what do I do with those feelings? Because I still feel this way. And I've answered this a couple ways. For one person, hey, don't let your feelings dictate your future. Because you can feel a certain way, but just because you feel that way doesn't mean it's right. I'm so glad that the Bible, when it talks about obedience, it doesn't say if I feel like it. Hey, follow Jesus, but only if it feels good. Hey, do this thing, but only if it feels like it's the right thing for you. Like, no, because my feelings can be wrong. The Bible says your heart can be deceitful. So you can be full on in love with the person who's the wrong person for you, and you feel all of these things. But the other thing is surrender those feelings to God. It's like, God, I feel this way. Like, how many of us have felt like, and how many of you felt like, I want to kill somebody? Like someone made you that angry, but like, I feel like, yeah, but you don't do it. You, so you don't go, because I feel this way, my feeling is right. No. My feeling is wrong. And I have to put my feelings next to morality and truth. And it is only then that you go, okay, I can't do it. I want to do it, but I can't do it. And so instead of us feeding the feeling, we go, I'm going to spend time with truth. Hey, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm disappointed, whatever those things are. But the only way that I get out of that is if I feed myself truth. You know what? I can't do that. I'll go to jail for the rest of my life. I would lose my family. I would lose. So then you go, okay. And the same is true with even sexual desires that men or women have. Yep, I feel this way. I want to do this thing. I want to do this. Yeah, but man, God has a right way and he has a perfect way for me. And I want to follow his way. It doesn't mean that these feelings go away, but it does mean the more time you spend over here, the less you want to do over here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We're emotional beings, man. And we need to use God's word as a filter. Jared knows me very well. I'm a very passionate, spirited individual, sometimes to my detriment, right, Jared?
Sure. I can't.
It gets the best of me. I coach boys baseball. I'm pretty passionate here at work.
Oh, you have to be passionate coaching boys baseball.
That's exactly right. And we get great results, but sometimes, and I apologize to the boys because I let my enthusiasm and competitive spirit get the best of me in a moment.
Yeah.
But after I've had time to reflect, I realize, I overstepped there.
Yep.
And a lot of us have to, and the only way to really do that is to pick this thing up right here and ask God for his strength to be able to get through those moments a little bit better next time. And that's the great thing about God. He gives us an endless amount of chances to do it better the next time.
Yeah. And if you don't consistently, like, hey, I love that. Listen, I love a good Bible reference. But if you don't,
that's it.
If you don't consistently speak truth into your life, you'll accept anything as truth.
Yeah.
So you got to read to the person that's struggling, the person that not just even struggling, but just you need to grow. Yo, read this. This is the only water that is going to nurture what needs to be grown in your life. And so the more you read this, you start to go, oh, you know what? I can manage. Listen, I got issues like everybody else, but it's like I can manage those issues a whole lot better because I know the word of God.
Yeah.
And some of those urges never go away. Paul says that he had a thorn in his side that he prayed for 3 times and asked God to take away. I don't know what it is. I be making every year I make up what was Paul going through. But no matter what it was, he still had it to the day he died.
I loved his honesty.
Yeah.
I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I do want to do. And it's like, dude, we've been going through that for thousands of years, Paul. Thank you very much.
Yeah. But man, thank God for grace and truth. So, yeah, man.
Well, Daryl, thank you so much for spending some time with us and chatting about this. It's something that needs to be talked about more, I would say.
Absolutely.
And I brought up the big ugly. Scripture talks about how if the enemy wants us to keep these things in the dark, and so we got to bring this stuff to the light, right?
Yep.
Whether it's something that I'm struggling with personally, we're struggling with as a culture, for us to be able to have conversations about this is really important, and not conversation for conversation's sake, but conversation for the sake of getting down to understanding, what is God's truth? Romans 12, that transformation of our minds to understand and think and process the way that God does. And so, obviously that comes through reading the word, and through being around a good community of people and being smart about the people that we're choosing to influence us. And so all of those things are good, practical things. So if you're listening to this today, please find your people, find the people that are going to be investing in you in a way that and directing you towards God and his truth and his word. Know that you're not alone in the struggle, that we're all in this thing together. And so please don't let your fear of being rejected or your fear of not being accepted, which are actually the same thing. That the fear, and don't let any kind of fears keep you from engaging with people, because we need to have those conversations. So again, Daryl, thank you.
Pleasure.
And please, we will make sure to connect that link to that message that you spoke 7 months ago in our description. So if people want to go back and actually watch that message, they can. Otherwise, we are Strong by Design. We are releasing a new episode every single Wednesday. So please come back, learn about spiritual health, physical health, nutritional health, all of those things, how to be the person that God designed you to be. That's what we want to help you do. So thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.